Hey guys, what's up and welcome to my Varya video, the new hero about to hit Vainglory in update 2.11. Now, she's a very unique hero. She's kind of a long-range, immobile mage, but also has this part of her kit where she can be quite reliant on her basic attacks. She's very cool to play and has two very unique CP playstyles. There are parts of her kit that lend herself to a weapon power playstyle, but as I get into the abilities, you'll understand why it's probably better to take her down a CP route. Now, her basic attacks scale with CP. This is her heroic perk. It's very similar to that of Lorelei and Celeste. Her basic attacks deal CP damage and they scale off the CP that you build. Then, much like Grace, if you follow through on a basic attack, which means you keep attacking the same target without moving away or changing targets, she deals another, what is essentially a basic attack, but that basic attack then chains to more enemies dealing damage. So they call it a chain lightning attack, because Varya literally shoots lightning from her hand like a Sith Lord. Very, very, very cool, and I'll explain how that sort of works with her kit as we go along. Her A ability is the ability that you see in her trailer, where she fires a giant, almost like lightning spear at Lyra. It's a very long-range skill shot, and it chains its damage. Much like the chain lightning attack on her basic attack, its damage also chains to the same amount of targets that her chain lightning attack would chain to as well. The skill takes 1.3 seconds to cast, so she's locked herself in an immobile position for 1.3 seconds while she casts this ability, but it is a pretty quick skill shot, and it can hit quite easily. Now, it interacts with her B in the sense that if you cast this ability while using her dash, or just after her dash, the cast time is sped up significantly, and I timed it to about 0.75 seconds. These are not super accurate. I used my phone to time these, but that's just some general guidelines. Looking at her B ability, it's another channel ability. She takes 0.9 seconds in a static area. I'm not using that as a pun. And this allows Varya to have 2 instant dashes on her move commands. You can dash at any time during the channel if you have to, but if you don't complete the channel, you only get 1 dash. She can also cast A, like I said, during this ability, or after this ability, very short time after this ability, and that reduces the cast time. So you can dash, and throw a very quick lightning spear. The dash also deals damage to 3 close enemies, and if you hit enemies, it regenerates a portion of your energy and also grants you a barrier based on your health. The barrier and the energy go up with the number of enemies that you hit. It's a really good way to regenerate energy for Varya because she's a super energy-hungry carry, and you'll notice that when you play her, all of her abilities and her chain lightnings consume a significant amount of energy, and this is one of the ways that she builds it back up. You can actually regenerate quite a big portion of energy by using this ability. Her ultimate is a true global map-wide spell that essentially calls down lightning bolts from the sky that target the ground beneath your enemies, no matter where they are on the map. Now, the enemies can move out of these targeted areas, but as you increase the ability, the area of effect of the lightning bolts also goes up, so it's harder and harder for the enemy to escape. This ability is going to excel in messy team fights where the enemies are concerned with their positioning against your own team, but then they also have to be concerned with their positioning with the lightning bolts. It grants passive attack speed on every level and increases the number of targets that your chain lightnings hit as well, going from 1 to 3 based on the amount of points that you put it in. And the passive attack speed is what I mean when I think Varya could be a basic attack focused CP carry with something like alternating current, but I'll talk about that in her build section as well. So those are her abilities. I think Varya has 2 distinct styles of CP play that you can look to capitalize and use when taking her onto the fold, but she could technically be built weapon power. I did build her weapon power in an onslaught with Dalsy, if you saw the video yesterday, and it kind of worked out okay. The problem is that in a regular match, she's not going to get any benefit from level scaling because she has no weapon power level scaling, and therefore it's really going to be item spike dependent for her, which makes her a little bit weaker than pretty much every other weapon power carry in the game. So therefore, I think it's better to lean towards a CP carry build. And like I said, there are 2 distinct styles. Before we get into that, though, as we're coming up to a point in the video which kind of demonstrates it, I want to talk about Varya's energy costs. She has a very high energy cost on her A and also using her chain lightning over and over again. I want to just show you guys in a minute, using her dash, you can regenerate a lot of energy, especially if you're hitting a hero. In this instance, I'm about to cast her ultimate. It uses a massive portion of my energy, and you can see here, I actually go down to below half. Using a double dash, hitting Kestrel and at least 2 other targets, means I basically regenerate my entire energy pool. So this is kind of what I want to lean towards when talking about how to play her in lane. Don't be afraid to spend the energy using your A to try and poke, or using your chain lightning to try and clear and push the waves, simply because you're going to be able to regenerate it quite frequently using your B. Every 20-something seconds or so, especially early on, you're going to get 30% of your energy back if you can just channel your B and hit at least two sets of 3 minions. So don't be afraid to use energy on Varya. You have a really good way of regenerating that. And also that goes for the same if you want to play her in the jungle. You know, if you hit a double camp with your B, you're going to regenerate a decent portion of energy regardless. This brings me on to her 2 styles of CP play, one of which I think is very good for the 3v3 map, one of which I think is more tailored for the 5v5 map. Now, because of her passive attack speed scaling in her ultimate, and the fact that she has CP scaling basic attacks, and the fact that she's got a 6.1 range, I think Varya is one of these CP carries that could genuinely do really well with alternating current. And I think it fixes some of her weaknesses as a CP mage by going the alternating current build, allowing her to be more reliant on her basic attack and functioning a bit more like a CP Adagio would. The problem on a 3v3 map with her classic kit, which is just using her abilities and building something like a Shatterglass, is that you're going for a more burst style of play, but the problem with that is you're super immobile. 1.3 seconds casting your A, almost 1 second immobilization using your dash, and then you have a 2.4 second immobilization on your ultimate. Obviously, those can be cancelled and changed depending on how you use your abilities. But in general, to cast an ability, you're going to keep yourself static for a very short period of time. And that is going to be bad news against things like Taka, Rona, Blackfeather, anything that can close the distance on you quickly. And the fact that you're so squishy means you're going to be easy to take out. On the 5v5 map, you'll have more space to work with, more angles of attack, and more heroes on your team to protect you, which is where her long-range mage style of play comes out. So I think if you're taking her to the 3v3 map as a laner, I genuinely think the alternating current build path is a pretty good choice, and I definitely think that's one that I will be testing out as soon as she goes live in a 3v3 setting. The other style of play, like I said, is this long-range mage style of play, using her A and her high scaling on that to try and utilize things like Shatterglass to your advantage. I'll come up with the 2 builds in a second, but that style of play is more utilizing the massive range on your spear and just trying to poke the enemy from a distance without them responding. Functioning a little bit like a CP Gwen would, but a little bit harder to hit the skill shot, to be honest. So obviously not quite as easy to pull off as the CP Gwen, even though they have very similar scalings on their A. But also then you have the ability to get basic attacks that also function with a 45% scaling, so you're still going to get a decent amount of burst damage coming out from those as well. So the 2 builds that I envisioned, I would say that for the most part, the basic attack build, you have an option of leveling A, which gives you some versatility. I always think overdriving C is absolutely necessary on the basic attack build because you get the massive attack speed buff. So if you're going to go for the alternating current build, absolutely you need to overdrive your ultimate. Then it's up to you whether you want to play a bit more like a mage from range whilst also weaving in those basic attacks, which would be better off to level your A, or level your B for slightly enhanced mobility and a lower cooldown on the double dash, which again probably is slightly better if you're playing that true basic attack style build that the alternating current build would sort of bring to the table. But again, it's absolutely critical that you level your C, and that is it. After that, it's kind of up to you what you'd prefer. But I would probably, if I'm going to be playing the alternating current build, go towards maxing my B and maxing my C, and less sort of pressure on maxing my A, because all you get from the A is increased distance and increased damage, which if you're not going to be using it that often because it renders you immobile, you don't need to worry about it too much. The other build is obviously maxing your A and maxing your C. I think it's always necessary to max your C. You increase the number of chain lightning targets, and also, again, that extra attack speed is always really good. So I think C in general is a pretty obvious max for me in most cases. But if I'm playing the long-range mage style, then I'll be maxing my A as well. When it comes to builds for the alternating current build, builds that I have enjoyed have been alternating current, and then going into something like Clockwork for the energy regen, and then picking up things like Dragon's Eye. If anything, I'd say alternating current into Dragon's Eye, into Clockwork, into Broken Myth or Eve of Harvest would be my go-to 4-item build for the alternating current build, and my go-to 4-item build for the long-range mage build would be something like Shatterglass into Clockwork, into Broken Myth, and then pick up an Eve of Harvest. You don't actually need to go Dragon's Eye technically on that build, because you're not looking to be in constant combat, you're just looking to fire off those spears from range, and therefore you're not going to be building Dragon's Eye stacks as readily. So those would be my 2 builds for Varya, just based on what I've initially done. That might change as we go through this update. Again, I've only had limited testing on her. This is just my theory crafting coming to light. Hope you guys have enjoyed it, and I hope you guys enjoy Varya when she gets released, and I'll see you soon.